Have your attention, please. Say, I have Officer Marx here, he's a Wenatchee County Sheriff, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that Mrs. Clave and I have been talking about, like bullying, harassment, treating people the way you want to be treated, being responsible, being respectful, those type of things. So, I'm going to hand it over to.
Great. Well, one of my favorite things to do as a sheriff is to come and talk to students and get out in the schools. You guys are the leaders of tomorrow, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about here today. What it takes to develop leaders of tomorrow, and successful leaders and positive leaders. Like Mr. Rank just said, he and Mrs. Clave asked me to come talk about some concerns that have come up here at this school with maybe some harassment, bullying issues that have come to light. Things that, frankly, are crimes by Iowa code. Here a few years ago, the Iowa legislature actually put into effect an actual bullying section into the code. The reason we bring this up, the reason I bring this up, is not to scare anybody. I want to make it clear here what's not going to happen today. There'll be no threats made to anybody. This is strictly informational. I'm not going to chew anybody out. And I'm not mad at any single person in here, because I don't know if, honestly, and I think it's important that we're all honest with each other. Neither Mrs. Clave nor Mr. Rank or any other teacher has given me any names, and that is true. I have absolutely no idea who the problems or perceived problems might be with. So this is not speaking to any one person. So if I make eye contact with you, it's just because I'm making eye contact with you. I'm not pointing anybody out. But the concern is that as we move forward here, we're moving forward in a positive direction, and that nobody is being left behind, and that nobody is being able to run somebody else over unjustly. The whole premise and point of what we do at the Sheriff's Office is to make sure that there's justice for everybody. Make sure that there's a basic sense of fairness for everybody. When I say fairness, so let me be clear, life is not fair. All through life, you are going to find things are not fair. And you can all think of something, I know I certainly can, in everybody's life as human beings, we've all had a time, multiple times in our lives, and it will continue to happen, that you were treated unfairly and things were not just. And I cannot change that, your teachers can't change that, your principal can't change that, your counselor can't change that. That is reality. So I wish I had better news for you on that front, but that's just the way it is. But that being said, we can all do our part. We do not need to be the problem in that. Let me kill my phone here, so we'll make sure it's active. We can at least do our part in trying to make things as good as we can. We all want to feel comfortable in our own skin. We all want to have that basic feeling of acceptance. We want to be accepted by our peers. We want people to like us. When I say we, I'm talking about myself as well. I mean we. It is very important for me to be accepted by the community. In order for me to be effective in my job, I have to be accepted by the community. Certainly there's going to be people who don't like me, and I can tell you for a fact there are people who despise me. And they will be very blatant about that, they will be mean about that, and I have had people come up to me and say some very inappropriate, mean things to me because of things that I have done or something that they perceive that I made a poor decision on. That's life. That'll be every one of you as well. But I have an overwhelming desire as a human being to be accepted by the community. I have probably even more of a desire than that to be accepted by my peers, to be liked by people, to be included with people. And that my peers mean other law enforcement, people I work with. Deputy Felton, you all know Deputy Felton. We work together and we get along great. We are great friends. That is important to me. And the reason I bring this up, I know you all have that same desire. Now there might be somebody sitting there, and maybe a friend or a student has told you before, I don't care, I'm my own person, I don't care if people like me, I don't care what I say. Well, you know what? They're fibbing. That is not true. Every single person has a desire to have acceptance. So then the next question comes in is, how far will we go to get that acceptance? How much are we willing to sell out, to sell our souls, to sell our values, to maybe give our family a poor reputation to gain that acceptance. What's your price? It's basically what it comes down to. What's your price? How far are you willing to go to make somebody else's life miserable, to the point that we've seen in our line of work where it can drive somebody to suicidal thoughts? Are you willing to, in essence, drive somebody to death for acceptance? What's your price? You're the only one that can answer that. How far will you go? So that before we continue on that, the next question then comes in. Why is the person that's doing this, what's their motive? What's their goal? I want to turn that around a little bit though. If somebody is comfortable in their own skin, and being confident is not a bad thing, okay? Confident people are successful people. That's also true. That's the truth. And I'm not going to lie to you on anything. I will tell you just the way it is. Confidence equals success. However, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. They're two separate things. Confidence and arrogance are not one and the same. And to be confident, and somebody who's truly confident within themselves will not cut other people down, will not bully others, whether that's a student or whether that's a manager of a business, a manager of a school, you name it. Somebody who's confident will not need to do that. So then that asks, so why do people do that? Because the person who's the bully, what we should be asking ourselves are, what is their complex? What do they lack confidence in? What is their issue that they're trying to overcome? We can all think of somebody in our head, and I don't want any answers, this is not a question, just keep it in your head. If somebody who's bullied you, or you've known to bully somebody else, or somebody that's maybe just a plain old jerk, and we all know people who are jerks. Let's reach out and at least think in our head, what is going on in their mind? Is it a problem at home? Is it a complex with themselves? Is it something that they struggle with where they lack confidence in their appearance? Do they lack confidence in their intelligence? Do they lack confidence in something else that maybe we will never know? We don't know their lives. We don't know what they struggle with. One thing that was brought up to me, I actually heard it on a Christian radio station. Said every time you meet somebody, you have an opportunity to make their day better. Every single person you meet, every single one of us in this room, right now, is struggling with something. Doesn't matter how on top of the world somebody might seem. And some people's situations might be bigger than others, no doubt. But every one of us has something that's bothering us right now, or some issue in our life that isn't how we would like it to be. Might be big, might be little. I know I certainly do, and I promise you every single person in this room does. And if you talk to somebody and they say, no, not me, everything's great, I'm struggling with nothing, they're not telling you the truth. Every single person is struggling with something, and includes myself. So every time we encounter somebody, we have an opportunity to lift them up, to make their lives a little better. We don't need to know what their issue even is to do that. But we can be kind to them. We can be nice to them. We can always offer a hand to try to make it better for them. So my whole point in this, and where I'm going with on this, is you don't know what act of kindness, how it's going to affect somebody. It may not affect them now. It may affect them down the road. You don't know what effect that had on their life. And somebody that's a bully is struggling bad. Somebody that's a bully or somebody that's harassing you is doing it possibly because they genuinely don't like you. That's possible. But more often than not, they're doing it because they have a problem with themselves. And what we find with bullies is they start at this age, and as we see them progress through life, and I've seen it, and I'll tell you a story here in just a second. I've seen it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they all end up in jail, because that's just not true. They do not all end up criminals. But they do have a criminal type mentality or way of thinking. They do tend to gravitate that way, and some do end up in jail, but not all. And that's where I'm going to be honest with you, they don't all. But the overwhelming majority, here's where they do most, not all, because all is a big word, but most will end up struggling. If they don't end up struggling in the criminal justice system, they're going to end up struggling in the workplace. Basic psyche of a criminal, a bully, somebody who harasses, tries to make things bad in other people, is they perceive niceness as a weakness. They're typically lazy, and they will try to take the path of least resistance. Every opportunity they get, try to beat the system, if you will. They will constantly just look for ways to put somebody else down in an effort to build themselves up. So if you are one of them that is maybe being bullied, being harassed, try to look at it from a compassionate point of view. What is this person that's being a jerk to me? What's bothering them so much that they feel they need to do this? If you are the person who is doing the bullying, or you are the jerk, think to yourself, what are some ways I can channel this, that I can quit living my life as a coward by treating other people poorly? And if you're maybe a bystander, a third party, maybe that's your opportunity to get in the middle of both of them. Maybe talk to both sides. Be a friend to the one who's getting bullied. Be the one to step up. Be the person of leadership. Be that person who is confident in their own skin. Be that person who will ultimately end up being successful one day. Help that person. Be that one to step up. Successful leaders, especially in this day and age, are bold. They don't need to be the smartest one in the room. They don't need to have all the fanciest ideas, but they do need to be bold, or they will fail. Or you can go to the bully. If you have the guts, go to the bully. And don't put them down. You're lowering yourself to their level. Ask them what the problem is. What are you struggling with? What can I help you with? Take the high road. Every one of us by nature has sinful desires. We all have a desire constantly pulling us to do things we shouldn't do. Are you going to overcome that within yourself to at least try to mitigate that? We're all humans, we're all going to screw up. But at least step up, be the bigger person, be the example. One last thing I'm going to talk about here, just a quick story, and then I'll just kind of close with just kind of how the law looks on this. And I'm going to close with that, we're going to be real brief, because really, the law is not the point. The law is something we'll deal with if you didn't get the point. Hopefully you got the point, so the law isn't going to matter. But when I was fresh out of college, I was actually started as a Kelmer police officer back in 1999. Was offered a job my senior year of college. They worked with me, and I was able to start 3 days after graduation. When I say graduation, I mean my last day of school. I did not go through my college graduation ceremony. Got my degree and all that, but I did not get to walk across the stage because I was at work. It's not a bad thing. I was happy to have a job. It's not a poor me story. I was happy. I was good with that. So anyways, I'm right out of school. Know very little about law enforcement. Brand new. I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying to fit in. I want to be accepted by my peers. I wanted to be accepted by the community like anybody else does. I was the new guy in town. There really isn't anything to do with it, but just to set the stage a little bit. I happened to be driving by a house. There was a little boy standing outside, probably 7, 8 years old. And I'm actually going to speak at Decorah High School here in a couple weeks. I'm going to tell the story there too, because it's important. And it taught me a lesson. There's a little boy standing outside, 7, 8 years old. He's holding fish. He had a fishing pole in one hand and had a fish. I swung into the yard, didn't see any adults around or anything, and I said, I don't make things up. I couldn't tell you exactly what I said. I don't remember. Made some comment, something to do with this fish, great fish. Kid was extremely excited. Told me he caught it out of Lake Meyer. He'd been out of Lake Meyer fishing that day, and very, very excited. Back then, we used, our cameras that we used were Polaroids. Does anybody know what a Polaroid is? Okay, I don't expect you to, but they were the type, as some do, so that's pretty cool. But they were even kind of on the way out back then. It was kind of the last of them. But if you take a picture, it would kind of spit picture out the bottom, and you'd kind of wave it, and you'd have to wait for it to develop, and eventually the picture would form. So when I say take a picture, it's not like we usually do now on our phones or something like that. So anyways, when I took a picture of him and his fish. Waited for it to develop a little bit, and I wrote a short note on the back of it, something to the effect of, "Great fish, proud of you know, Officer Marx." Or something very similar to that. I didn't think a whole lot more about it. Kind of went on my way. Years passed. Years later, I was working as a deputy. I got hired at the sheriff's office a couple of years later. As a deputy, we're out in the rural areas. A lot more area to cover. 1,400 square miles here in Winnebago County. It's a lot of area. I was working. We have one shift. We come on at 4 a.m. in the morning. There's only one of us working. We have no backup at 4 a.m. So it's dark. I mean, very, very dark night. It's in the middle of the summer. I get called to a campground to a large fight. I get there. There's weapons being used. There's a large crowd. People aren't drunk, and they're not being reasonable. I'm alone. I kind of stood back. I see this. I'm contemplating how I'm going to approach this to be able to take care of the situation and keep myself safe and keep everyone else safe. In the meantime, trying to deal with 20-some obnoxious people, with drunk, obnoxious people with weapons. How am I going to approach this? Heard a voice from behind me. Couldn't even see him very good because it was pretty dark. Said, "Officer Marx, do you need any help with this?" I kind of looked, didn't think a lot of it, and my mind was fixed over here, so I didn't give a lot of thought to it. And I said, "No, I'll be fine. I'll be fine, thank you." And anyways, the situation ended up, we got things taken care of. I'll kind of skip to the end, that's not the point, but the situation was neutralized, we'll call it. On the way out, I saw this same guy, this guy's probably in his 20s. This guy was standing over kind of along the car, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you again for that offer, I appreciate that." I said, really means a lot, and I said, "I'm glad everything went okay." He said, "You remember me? You know who I am?" I said, "No, I have no idea." Told me his name, and I said, "Okay, do I know you from somewhere?" He says, "Yeah, remember when you worked in Kelmer?" He said, "You took a picture of me and my fish." And he said, "I still have that picture today." And I said, "Oh, wow," and he kind of explained it, and I said, "Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that." And he said, "Yeah," he said, "My mom and dad were pretty into meth. We had meth labs in our house. My mom and dad they wouldn't even look at that fish. In fact, they didn't have much to do with them his whole life. And I'd like to tell you this is some happy ending. I've seen this guy several times since then, mostly up in court and in and out of our jail a few times. And he came from a very, very tough upbringing. And I feel sorry for his situation. I do not feel sorry for him. He is an adult now. He still has the opportunity to make his own choices. I understand his background, and I have a lot of respect for this guy. But he now has the opportunity to make his own choices, the same as all of you do. Bottom line is, though, I didn't think anything of it, stopping and taking a picture of that fish. I didn't think anything of it. It meant nothing to me. It meant so much to me that I forgot. So I was mad at myself about that. That's how insensitive I was. I didn't even remember doing it. I went off on my merry way. I had my own problems to worry about. Certainly wasn't thinking about his. I didn't know about the background. I had no idea what he was struggling with. And frankly, what I did didn't change anything, but it certainly built a relationship, and that day it made a difference for him. And that came back later on, where to this day, he doesn't like cops. He's had a lot of bad experiences with cops because of the choices he's made. But I guarantee I could walk into a room and he would trust me, and I would trust him. I would know that if he told me something, I would trust him. I would trust the guy in meth in and out of our jail because we built a relationship. So you never know what little things you do make big differences on people. Okay? Take that opportunity to build somebody's day up, even if it's a small thing. You don't know what somebody else is dealing with. You don't know what the bully is dealing with any more than I knew what that kid was dealing with. I didn't know that till years later. And if you're the bully, you don't know what the person that you're bullying is dealing with. And you don't know if what you're going to say to them is going to be that last thing that puts them over the edge to ruin that person's life, or to cause that person to go down a road that will have long time or lasting effects. So I told you I'd talk about the law a little bit. We're going to talk about it very briefly, because like I said, the law does not matter unless you chose not to listen to anything here today. Then we have no choice but to take it to the next step. Iowa put in a bullying law. The bullying law basically pertains to schools. And it basically requires schools to have anti-bullying policies in place. It requires certain reporting elements in the law. And frankly, I don't know exactly how all that works. Mr. Ryan would probably be able to explain that better, because it doesn't really directly, it does and it doesn't affect what we do as law enforcement. It's more a law putting regulations on schools that you will deal with bullying. If you have an offender, you must deal with it. And you must have a policy in place to deal with it. And if that doesn't work, you must take it to the next level. And there's reporting to the state and everything, and the next level would be us. After some other things, there's several steps, so it eventually gets to us. That's where the harassment law comes into place. And I read the law this morning, because I knew I was coming here, so I brushed up on things a little bit, on the bullying law and the harassment law. And basically, if you're doing something that is not kind or causing anybody to be upset, causing anybody to lose sleep, causing anybody to not want to come to school, causing, it's spelled right out, you can Google search it yourself. It talks about how if you are doing something to try to keep friends away from a certain person, if you're basically trying to rally people to not be friends with a certain person, you name it, it is very broad. I got to admit, I was guilty. I was not aware how broad the bullying law was. It is very broad. So basically, that is our code that says this is bullying, which is basically anything. If you're being a butthead, it's bullying, okay? It falls into the code. The harassment section is what we charge on for law enforcement. And that would be charged the same as any adult would be charged. None of you are 18 yet, so it would be done as a juvenile referral. You've heard, well, juvenile records are sealed. That's a farce. Some are, a lot of them aren't. That's something you have to try for, you have to basically petition for when you get to be 18 if you want that record sealed or not. And it just depends what the level of crime is, and frankly, it depends who your attorney is, what kind of judge you have. And when you're sitting there looking at going off to college, you're looking at getting jobs, that's not something you probably want to be horsing around with, seeing if you can keep your college or your employer from finding out the person you really are from your past. So I'm not going to dwell on that. If we need to deal with it, the person that we deal with will get to know the law really well, because we will proceed with charges and referrals. But I also promised you that I was not here to threaten anybody. I also promised you that I was here to tell you the truth. And the truth is, I don't want to do that. The truth is, I'm not threatening to do that. The truth is, I want to work with you in every way I possibly can. Mr. Wright wants to work with you in every way he possibly can, as does Mrs. Clay. That's why we're here. We're not here as a threatening. This isn't here to threaten. We're here to make sure we are all on the same sheet of music when we leave here. We all have a clear understanding of where we sit with this, and that it has to end. I'm an honest person. I've been totally honest with you all. And my next bit of honesty is, if we're called, we will proceed in a professional manner, in an official manner. Yes?
Were you bullied?
I experienced some, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily the kid that was, maybe getting picked on all the time, but I think I was a pretty regular student, lived a pretty regular life, probably with most of the rest, I'm guessing with the majority of the students in here. And so to say that I never experienced any time where I feel it would fall into bullying would be baloney. No, I definitely feel that. I could definitely say that, yeah, I've experienced bullying. You know what? Not only as a kid, but as an adult. It doesn't end. You're going to have, I talk to people all the time that are experiencing problems in the workplace. It's a big buzz word right now, but it's real. Hostile working environment. I have people come to me in confidence all the time behind closed doors. What should I do? I have a coworker or maybe a boss, and they'll proceed to say kind of what's going on in the workplace, and we have to look into that. So yes, and that's a great question. I appreciate you asking it, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think there's very few people, if they're being honest with themselves and others could say they've never experienced any bullying at all. Are there any other questions? Anything else?
Excellent. Why don't we give Officer Marx a round of applause?
When I come to talk, if you see me out on the street and maybe not wearing a uniform, I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. One of them is in 7th grade, and I have another one in 5th grade. So I love kids your age. It's basically where my kids are at. As I look around, I know a few of you. I've seen several of you, and but I'm not always that good with names. So come up to me and hit me on the shoulder, slap me on the back, and say, "Hey, how you doing? Remember me? I'm from South Wind. I'm the 8th grader at South Wind. I saw you when you came to talk to us in the library that day. I saw you at the Dare field trip. I know you maybe from baseball," or whatever it is. You'll see me around at a lot of baseball games this summer. We do a lot of baseball. Love baseball. So that's, you might see me with my kids or my wife or maybe my baseball team. I coach the 5th grade team. My son's on the 7th grade team. I love baseball. I love it. So if I ever give you the cold shoulder, call me out on it. Say, hey, you told me I should say hi to you. You know, sometimes I get kind of lost in what I'm doing, and like I said, I make mistakes like everybody else, but say hi to me. If you ever have a problem with anything, you ever have something you're dealing with, go to your teachers and they'll help you. But if you don't feel that they did help you, go to your mom and dad. But you know what you can always come to is us. We'll listen to you. I have a lot of respect for kids. I think young adults your age, I think oftentimes get a bad rap. Maybe you saw it in the Austin newspaper here recently. We talked about texting. The guy I was talking to kept saying, "Well, do you have a problem with young drivers texting?" My answer was, and it's in the paper, look it up. I said, "Not really. We have a problem with adults texting. You guys are smarter than that. You grew up knowing that that's wrong. It's the adults who are trying to figure this out. You guys are good people. Show them that. Show them that. When you go out into the workforce and you go, to be a leader doesn't mean you got to be an adult. Being a leader means right now. Nobody has more leadership ability than you do over your peers. Be a leader right now." So look me up if you see me. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Okay, should we have 7th grade head back down first?